Welcome back. It is your Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso, live on SABC3 on a very important day, International Human Rights Day. Joining me is Professor Amanda Goos, of course, a commissioner for the Commission for Gender Equality. This is a very important time of the year for you, I would imagine.
Absolutely. We've been busy with a 16 days campaign against non-violence against women, and this is the last day. So in that period, since the 25th of November, we have been doing different types of events to raise consciousness around the very big problem of violence against women in South Africa. And we've also launched our 365-day report. The importance of this report is that we are looking at turning the 16 days into 365 days. But what the report looks at is the wider national action plan against violence against women. How has it been implemented? Has it been sufficiently implemented? And also looking at the multi-sectoral approach. Like the legislation, we have the criminal justice system, the implementation by police, and so on.
That, I suppose, is the great conundrum. It's the disconnect between how everyone feels about this topic, which we, I think, on the surface of it all are united in our condemnation. Yet does the legislation, does the way that society supports these campaigns, is that working? Are we seeing that connect?
Well, I think there's a lot of support for the campaign, but we need to look at the statistics around violence. If we just take the police statistics for 2012, it was over 64,000 rapes. But the 1 in 9 campaign tells us that only 1 in 9 rapes are reported. So if you then make a calculation, we get over 500,000 of rapes per year. And that is still seen as an underestimate. So it's really a very serious problem. And if, you know, we've also looked at, there's been a report on the implementation of the Sexual Offences Act. And in that sample of police stations that have been looked at, only 3% of police have had training on the implementation of the Sexual Offences Act. So why this is so difficult to curb violence is because you're absolutely right. There's not enough liaison between the different sectors, between government departments, the criminal justice system, that includes police, and the people on the ground. So our report shows those gaps, and the government is now going to launch a National Council on Gender-Based Violence. But you know, that will also have the different stakeholders on the council, but we will have to be far more vigilant in how we implement.
What does it mean for a person like myself? What can I do to bring about a shift as an individual? I think in South Africa we are so desperate as individuals to find a way to help beyond wearing a ribbon, beyond showing our support. Where do we start in this battle? What is the first step in your mind that South Africans should be doing?
I think it is about raising consciousness, and that's what we've been doing with the Commission, with the 16 Days campaign. We've done different events talking about violence, talking about gender-based stereotypes and prejudice and so on. But I think for you as a man, it's also important to look at the contribution that men can make. And there are organizations that work with men, like Sonke Gender Justice has a One Man Can campaign that's very important, raising the awareness of men and also trying to include men who are perpetrators, in the sense that, you know, we have this epidemic of violence, and for the most part, men are the perpetrators. But I would say to be involved and get involved also with NGOs who work in the field. And then, of course, shelters for domestic violence are very important, and they are suffering a huge financial crisis at the moment. I mean, the Saki Bartman Centre here in the Western Cape has been very near to closing, and we really have to have people contributing. Even if you contribute as an individual, every little bit of money helps.
And it also feeds into that group consciousness. Now, of course, the United Nations is, is also very focused on this. This isn't a uniquely South African problem, but at least the eyes of the world are now turning onto this very, very critical topic.
Right. The 10th of December is International Human Rights Day that celebrates the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Written in 1947-48 after the end of the Second World War. But the importance of that declaration is that it has given rise to about 60 human rights instruments, of which the Convention for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and the elimination of torture, the Convention on Women, the Protection of Women and Children in Armed Conflict, and so on, have all come as a consequence of the Universal Declaration. So that's why we celebrate it, and why it's also a method of raising consciousness about those different instruments and the failure of implementation on a global level. Violence against women is a global problem, and especially there's so many countries that are in armed conflict, and that's also a very big problem.
Well, as much as there seems to be this massive journey ahead of us, it's great to see so much focus stemming, as it has in the past, from South Africa. We do have a role to play here. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of today. I know it's a very big and important day for you guys. Have a wonderful day. I hope that you achieve the results that you are looking for on a very practical level this year. But know that Expresso is behind you for 365 days of 2013. We look forward to catching up with you again next year, hopefully with a little bit more good news.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
That was Professor Amanda Goos, the Commissioner for the Commission for Gender Equality, talking to us about International Human Rights Day. As an individual, certainly as a man, there is a lot we can do, and it starts in the mind and in your own home. Set a new example. We are continuing with a Great Gatsby-inspired edition of Expresso this morning. I hope you've got your cane. I hope you've got your cap, because the party is about to kick off.